They didn't want you healed. They wanted you confused. That's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Because when you wake up, really wake up, everything changes. The illusion shatters, the spell breaks, the mask slips, and suddenly, those who once held power over your soul start to panic. Because you're not asleep anymore. You're not their puppet anymore. You've started seeing. And Carl Jung, decades ago, warned humanity about this moment. The moment your unconscious becomes conscious. And their control starts to die. It doesn't happen overnight. The awakening begins in whispers, in discomfort, in nights where your chest feels heavy and you can't explain why, in the moments you smile while feeling hollow, in the cracks that show up in your perfect persona, your polite obedience, your always agreeable mask. The narcissist depends on your sleep. Not literal sleep, but psychological unconsciousness. They need you unaware, unsure, self-blaming, constantly spinning in confusion. Because confusion is the playground of manipulation. As long as you doubt yourself, you obey. As long as you search for love from the one who keeps hurting you, they own you. As long as you're chasing their approval, your life becomes a maze you'll never escape. But Jung taught us this. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's how narcissists win. They make you believe your pain is your fault. Your trauma is your weakness. Your questioning is disloyalty. And they do it so subtly, so cleverly that you don't even realize it's happening. Until one day something shifts. Maybe you read a quote. Maybe someone says something that rattles your bones. Maybe you see a look in their eyes that chills your soul. But suddenly you stop blaming yourself. You stop begging for crumbs. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You wake up. And in that moment, that exact moment, they fear you. Not because you raised your voice. Not because you fought back. But because you stopped playing the game. You detached. You saw behind the curtain. You noticed the lies. You stopped responding to their guilt trips, their silent treatments, their love bombs and rage cycles. You realized it wasn't love. It was control wrapped in pretty language. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is the narcissist's panic. Your awakening is their collapse. Because they don't have real power, only borrowed power. And the moment you stop feeding it with your attention, emotion, and neediness, it shrivels. Carl Jung didn't just talk about shadow work for fun. He taught that every person has a hidden self, a shadow. The narcissist projects theirs onto you. They blame you for the very things they're guilty of. They paint you as crazy, oversensitive, too much. And they gaslight you into believing that truth doesn't exist, only their version of it. But once you wake up, you stop absorbing their projections. You hand their shadow back to them and walk away. They fear this because your awakening threatens their entire false reality. Narcissists are addicted to control, and your clarity breaks their spell. Your silence becomes louder than any argument. Your boundaries become stronger than any manipulation. Your inner peace becomes their biggest torment. You don't even have to expose them. The universe does that. They unravel themselves. Because narcissists always self-destruct when they can't feed off someone else's energy. And you, now awakened, are no longer a source. You've seen your own soul. You've faced your darkness. You've sat in silence and heard your intuition whisper, "This is not love." And you listened. That alone makes you powerful beyond measure. Carl Jung warned that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not about becoming good. It's about becoming real. And that's what the narcissist cannot stand. They wear a mask. You removed yours. They build an image. You found your truth. They pretend. You feel. And that contrast terrifies them. They fear you because you remind them of what they can never be, authentic. And as you evolve, their tactics stop working. Their guilt trips fall flat. Their insults sound childish. Their charm seems fake. You no longer need them to see your worth. You've seen it yourself. You no longer argue to prove your heart. You simply walk away. You don't chase. You choose. You don't beg. You bless. You don't break. You build. You're not triggered anymore because you've healed the wounds they used to exploit. This is the death of their power, not with drama, not with revenge, but with your transformation. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Narcissists avoid themselves by trying to control you. But once you face yourself, once you've walked through the fire and survived, they lose all control. You are no longer confused. You are no longer fragmented. You are whole. And that wholeness sends a shockwave through every relationship. Every dynamic, every past version of yourself that ever tolerated less. They fear this version of you, the one who doesn't explain, doesn't justify, doesn't shrink. They can't manipulate someone who sees clearly. They can't dominate someone who no longer fears being alone. They can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't carry shame. That doesn't belong to them. And they cannot survive in a space where truth is louder than ego. So now they panic, not because you hurt them, but because you're no longer hurt. They panic because your light shows their shadow. They panic because your peace exposes their chaos. They panic because your boundaries reveal their disrespect. They panic because your healed heart no longer needs their validation. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the power of the awakened soul. You become untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you know who you are. You've seen your shadow. You've faced your trauma. You've danced with your demons and chose to love yourself anyway. And now, they fear you, not because you're dangerous, but because you're free. And nothing terrifies a narcissist more than someone they can no longer control. Because once you wake up, you never go back to sleep.